Hi, I'm Chris Waddell. Welcome to Living It, the podcast where we join experts in the experience of being human. Be bold. Say yes to adventure. Say yes to living it. Welcome to Chris Waddell Living It, where we talk with experts in the experience of being human. I've always thought that sports is the way that we get to see the possibilities of what we can do. Olympics and Paralympics, those of us sitting on the couch feel like we have shared in the victory of those on television. I just came from watching Daniel Romanchuk at the U.S. Paralympic track and field trials in Minneapolis, and I felt that way. It looked so simple, Daniel, the way that you did it. Unfortunately, I've been in that position, and I know that it is not nearly that simple to go that fast. So we're going to talk about that and talk about how you're approaching Rio, or not Rio, because that would be 5 years ago, how you're approaching Tokyo. So Daniel, thank you so much for joining us.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, you know what? After watching trials, and I have to admit, I've watched the 5K that you did at Cedartown at least 3 times, maybe more than 3 times. So I don't know if I qualify as a stalker or not, but it was absolutely tremendous to watch it. And what I watched, like in that race, in the 800, in a variety of different things, what I want to know is what does that feel like? Like that 5K where you and Aaron went out, broke away from the pack, you took the turn, you went up the hill, and he was like 100 yards behind you, or 100 meters, I guess we should talk about, in like 15 seconds. I mean, it was just amazing. What does that feel like to have that kind of strength and just control of the race?
So, Cedartown was certainly a fast. The course is fast. The conditions were great, so I'm just trying to remember that course. So it starts on a pretty nice long straightaway, and then the first turn is a right turn, and there's a pond on the outside of the turn.
And a fall away turn that looks like it'll bring you right into the pond. Yes.
Objective one of that race was don't go swimming.
Good objective.
But as soon as you take that right, you've got another small little stretch until you take another right and go up a hill. I grew up in hills, that's something I've always loved to do is climb hills. Downhill, not so much. I've always loved to climb hills, and so I tried to just push things and see physically how far I could go. And beyond that hill, it was really just concentrating on a lot of technical things as well. Am I pushing up to my max speed if I'm on a downhill and I'm not resting too much? Am I cresting over the hills, taking turns, and all that stuff? So that's kind of all running through my mind during races like that.
Yeah, and just that feeling of being in control. Because I watched your one of your 800 from Switzerland this past year, where you got out and got into lane one, and there were a couple of times it looked like Brent Lakatos threw a couple of surges and tried to come around in two, and you kind of picked it up and pushed him back into his place. And that's, do you feel like, do you feel confident in your ability to maintain that position and to sort of thwart any of the attacks that are coming at you right now?
I certainly am. I'm feeling strong right now. But one thing I've learned is in the races, in longer races, in the 53, 54 category, males especially, it's anyone's race. Always I'm always thinking, okay, who's in the pack? Who's doing what, and what's if we're on a road course, what's coming up next, and knowing who's in the pack and what's coming up next. Will anyone kind of try anything? Is anyone going to try and break away, or is the pack probably just going to sit back for a while? And so a lot of things are kind of going through my mind, and so I'm never really thinking, oh, I can fend off any attack or anything like that during a race. It's very just in at that moment, just what's going on, and what do I need to do.
But obviously that has to be a strategy for you, right? To get out and get into lane one, a position that in some ways you can defend most easily, but also means that you're at the front of the pack and people behind you are having a much easier time. So is that often your objective, to try to stay clean in the race?
So sometimes it is, yeah, because it in the front of the pack, if there's a crash, you're a lot less likely to be involved, and things like that. The person in front kind of can set the pace a little bit, but really it all kind of depends on what race it is, who's there, how I'm feeling. All that kind of stuff plays all into my race plan. But yeah, really just going in with a plan and adapting as I need to.
So we are assuming, I am assuming, that you will be on the team for Tokyo. They're naming it today. I don't think they've named it yet, right?
Not yet.
Not yet.
So I earned my spot for the marathon back in 2019. But yeah, all the track events will be named this afternoon.
Exactly. Now, you were on the team for Rio. And so Tokyo will be your second games. And I remember your coach, Adam Blakeney, prior to Rio was saying that Daniel at some point will be the best wheelchair racer in the world. High compliment from Adam, that's for sure. But yet Rio, you didn't end up making finals in Rio.
Nope.
What did you learn from Rio that then will now help you in Tokyo?
I think I learned a good amount. I think there was one thing that I think it was Adam told me at Rio. I think it was before my 800, and he was just like, go out and race how you want to race. Don't let anyone else decide what you are going to do. And so I think that race I just went out and just sprinted, and it of course didn't make the finals or anything. But afterwards, he was like, you went out on your own terms. No one else decided, how the race was going to go. You decided, this is how I'm going to race the race. So that one thing I do remember from that. But yeah, also just all of the just going through the process with team processing, the travel, living in the village, going through the call tent, getting on the start line, in the stadium, and all of that stuff. I think it's gonna be a slight advantage to have gone through that, and so nothing will really be new.
Nothing will be new, and you were 18 years old when you were in Rio, so you were a kid. You were a talented kid, but you were a kid, and you were up against some of the big people, right? I mean, this is Marcel Hoog and David Weir and Roat and all the guys, all these guys who've been successful, not just recently, but for a long period of time. Is it a little bit demystified? Do you feel like you're not sort of hero worshiping some of these guys who might be in the race, or giving them too much respect?
So I did kind of grow up watching some of those guys on the world stage and stuff like that. And it's still it's it's a great time whenever I get to race with them. And I always learn something. I'm I'm not sure that I've ever had too much of a situation where I am scared or of the other racers or anything like that. I'm always kind of just like, okay, I'm here at a race. It's another marathon, or we're doing another 5K or whatever. Um, and so I kind of try and keep that kind of a mindset. It's just it's another race, same distance. But again, keeping in mind that you never really know what's going to happen.
You don't know what's going to happen. And there were definitely, I watched some of your races from Rio just this morning again, and seeing how there were definitely some times where you were pushed into 2, 3, 4, and also even just watching like a guy like Kurt Fernley, who was in your 5K heat, who who seemed to have that full control, right? Because he knew he was this he knew well he knew he looked like he knew he was the strongest guy there. And so at one point he pulled out a couple of times, he pulled out kind of into 4 and just turned and looked at the pack and said, okay, let's see how these guys are doing, and then reinserted himself. And but watching those kinds of things, is that something that you're looking at? Because the strategy of the races becomes so much more important when you have a deep field. As you said, anyone
Yep.
can win. And so it's not like you're just matching one person. You're kind of looking, okay, well, somebody going to come off my right shoulder? Is somebody going to come on the inside? Is somebody going to break away? Is that some of what you're looking at? And I'd imagine with Adam, he's probably throwing some of these things at you in training to prepare you for the race so that you've seen everything.
So yeah, we certainly we do some kind of race simulation where certain people will be in certain places in the pack and are gonna do certain things, and everyone kind of has to respond to whatever they do. Um, but Yeah, I mean, learning the pack dynamics has been a quite a long process for me. I remember back in this is also just physically being capable of staying in with the packs as well. But I remember Chicago Marathon has kind of always been my kind of my baseline marathon of where I am I fitness and tactics and things like that. I remember some of my first times just saying, okay, I'm going to try and stick in that front pack for a mile, and then the next time it was 5 miles, and then till halfway, until eventually it was okay. I need to try and be able to pay attention to what's going on in the pack, and make sure that no one's breaking away. I remember one of the marathons. I think we were around halfway through Chicago, and I think Marcel just broke off the front. I was just kind of sitting, in the group somewhere, just kind of pushing, and then I kind of was, finally taking tabs of my surroundings a little bit, and I was like, wait, we're missing someone. Yeah, and he was already 100+ meters off the front.
That is the shock, but it's also in some ways it's the step that you have to take, right? That step that you
Yep.
have to recognize that you belong in that pack. And then when you can start taking inventory of that pack. Do you remember the first time that you actually went to the front of that lead pack? And if you do, what was that like?
So I remember in Chicago 20, I think it might have been 18. That was, I think, the first year that there were actually there were bonus points in the marathon for the Abbott series.
Mhm.
And so I just said, you know what, I'm gonna try and go for the points. So I think it was the first person to cross the halfway mark would get the bonus points. And so there was a slight bridge right before 13. And so I set that as my point to try and surge and get away. And I did end up kind of breaking the pack up a bit. And from there on, it was a pack of three: myself, Marcel, and David Weir.
That's a pretty solid pack that you broke it down to. Yeah. Wow. So is that a moment of realization when you kind of break it apart, break the pack apart, and you look around and you see, okay, there's Marcel here, there's David Weir here. These have been two of the top guys in the world, and I'm here with them. Did you have that moment while you were there, or was it just all going so fast that you couldn't even think about it?
A little bit of both. I did realize that the pack broke up quite a lot, and it was just us three. And at that point, I was just thinking, okay, let's go as a small group, and at whatever happens at the end happens. We have 1, 2, 3 here, and it certainly was not something I was expecting to happen. Again, just kind of going in with a plan and adapting as things change.
Exactly. And you take a bit of a philosophical view to racing in general, right? So what's your, what do you want from racing? Like when you go into a race, whether it's on the road, whether it's on the track, a 10K, a marathon, whatever it is, and even training, how are you approaching it? What do you want to get from that race, from that training session, from effectively your career as a wheelchair racer?
So yeah, I certainly do. I try and take things just one day at a time. Just every day's practice. Try and focus on one thing in that practice, and I know that those little things will add together when races come around and stuff like that. And also, in a race, just knowing that I've done everything I can, to be the best that I can on race day, and just knowing that, hey, whether it's enough or not, I've given it all I have, and I at that point, I think I'll be happy no matter what happens.
So it's not necessarily results oriented as much as it is effort, intention, and that preparation. I'm assuming is not just physical. It's also with regard to your chair and your gloves
Yep.
and all of that.
Yeah. Yep. One of the things that I remember being getting into racing and going to some of my first races when I was probably around 7 or so years old, and being terrified to pump up my tires because I didn't know if that valve was going to have a mind of its own and I would end up with just no air instead of just a low pressure tire. And so just thinking back to those days, yeah, I certainly do just go pretty deep into my equipment and just know how it works. What are the things that could malfunction, and how do I troubleshoot them to fix them. One of the things that I did in 2020 was actually a series with Krieg Skabort, and him and I kind of did a series on the racing chair and kind of just broke it down in general, and some of the things that can go wrong, some general maintenance and troubleshooting and things like that. Because just to grow the sport, I remembering back to those days, it's like I don't want to have someone else go through that, and so just trying to just spread the word on how it all worked and just how to fix it.
Well, because most often you are your own mechanic as well,
Yep.
right?
Yep. So yeah, I mean, absolutely. It is an individual sport. You're responsible for your own equipment, but it's also, I think it's a very tight knit community, and a lot of racers are willing to help out if you don't have this piece of equipment with you, and just need it. Everyone's willing to help out, get everyone on the start line.
Yeah, exactly. And some of that also, I mean, obviously being at the University of Illinois, you're lucky in some ways in that one, you have a team, two, you have Adam who has eyes on you. And some of what's important, right, is you can train really hard, but it can also be a challenge to, and you have Marty Morse who's been a mentor to you as well. But it can be hard to get all of that power into the rings that then allows you to go forward. And you've approached this in a little bit different way, right? I mean, in some of it, it looks like you're sitting differently now than you were in Rio. Looked like your knees were a little bit
Yep.
higher in Rio
Yep.
and a little bit lower now. But you've also gone to a little bit bigger push ring. Can you
Yep.
tell me what kind of chair modifications you've made that have helped your progress as well?
Yeah. And so yeah, a lot has changed since Rio. And so I think one of the first changes that happened was later in the fall. And I changed my gloves from the soft harness style glove to a hard glove. And so we actually 3D print those here at the university. And so it's basically it's just a hard 3D printed plastic that it's still got the rubber super glued on it, but it's a much more direct in the transfer of energy and stuff like that. So you get a better transfer that way. And I think one of the next changes that I did was probably the hand ring size. And so that is really kind of goes down into the biomechanics of racing and the technique with the stroke and all of that. And so basically, with the smaller rings towards the bottom of the stroke, everything was just kind of crunched up. And so we try to get that bottom part of the stroke a little bit more smoothed out. We moved to a bigger ring because I have relatively long arms, and
Is it true that you have a 6'10" wingspan?
yep, 6'9", 6'10", something like that. Yep. And so that was just a change to try and fit things a little bit more biomechanically. And then I
And so this is
also
is it a 17-inch push ring that you're using?
so yep, I went probably from I think 14 and a half, 15-inch to 17-inch hand ring. Yep.
Which a lot of the pack is using a 14 and a half, 15-inch. It's sort of standard, but with longer arms,
Yep.
it's effectively, I mean, one, you're getting cleaner off the bottom of the ring, but two, you're effectively in like a higher gear, like to create an analogy for those people who are riding their bikes, right? It's like being closer to first gear
Yep.
as opposed to fifth gear.
And so yeah, climbing might be a little bit easier for me, but my top end speed might be a little bit slower than some other people's. So yeah, there's a lot that went into all of that. And then I also changed the chair that I was using. So I was using an Eagle, and then I changed over to a top end carbon fiber chair. And so the Eagle was an aluminum chair. They make good chairs. Really, just the responsiveness of the carbon fiber was something that I had always wanted to kind of try out. And when Top End presented the opportunity to try out an NRG, I took it, and so that's also, I think, that's the last change that I made. And really, that's just to try and get a little bit more responsiveness out of the chair. It's a little bit lighter and stiffer than the aluminum, and so just to try and get that little bit more response out of it.
And did you not change how it looked like your knees are lower now than they were
Yes.
in Rio.
I forgot about that. I did change a little bit with my seating position. I kind of played with that for the past few years, and just what's kind of the best, most efficient yet still powerful kind of seating position. So yep.
And what's amazing, so we'll talk a little bit about trials and what you're looking for in Tokyo, but you were using the same seating position for the 100 meters that you use for the 5,000 meters and for the marathon. Is that right?
Yep. Yep.
So you're in there, and that's because the 100 meters, it's all, so much of it is about the start in the 100 meter.
Yep.
I do have to get back to the wingspan at some point. What do you think when that's the thing that's always attached to your name, when it's Daniel Romanchuk, 6'10" wingspan? What's your response to that when you hear that?
Not too much, I guess. I guess it's something I don't think about too much. But I mean, yeah, it certainly, I think, does play into the sport. I think it is potentially not as good as some people kind of say it is, because you also have to have the power behind. Yes, you have a longer lever arm, so you can move it faster, but you also have to have that power to drive it faster. And so it's. But yeah, I mean, it certainly does affect the sport. You have to find the right equipment to get everything dialed in.
Which is exactly it, right? I mean, it's no two athletes are built the same.
Yep.
And in wheelchair racing, it's probably more significant than other sports in that
Very individualized.
Excuse me?
Very individualized.
It really is individualized, and there's a fair amount of trial and error to see, well, is this going to work better if I sit up higher, if I sit lower? And you see different people. I mean, certainly in the 100 meters, you see like a Tati who sits almost completely upright. But in some of the longer races, you see like a Brent Lakatos who almost sits on the axle and is so low. He looks so much smaller than everybody in the pack. But yet, two people who've been very successful and different. There's no guaranteed one way to do it. I was talking at one point to Kurt Fernley about you, and he said, you know what, Daniel has everything. He has the ability. He has all the tools to make it to be really a great racer. What do you think? Is there anything that can stand between you and being a great racer and realizing your potential?
It's kind of a difficult question. So I think there's a lot that goes into racing. Some of the things that I think can lead to a great racer is putting the time in. This is a very technique-driven sport, and so getting that stroke technique is vital. We kind of don't stress power too much, like lifting and things like that. Kind of for those reasons, because power will only do you so much, but technique is going to take you a lot longer, a lot farther.
And maintain your health as well, I assume.
Sorry?
And maintain your health as well.
Yep. Yep. We want to make sure our, don't blow up our shoulders. Very, very vital joints. Um, but yeah, just making sure you have good technique. Um, One of the things that I was listening to an audiobook, and kind of two people got talking about, what makes a great athlete. And one of the things that came up, besides, genetics and a lot of other things like that, was they can handle monotony. Is a lot of times just showing up to practice every day, it's the same thing. It's repetitive. And so being able to handle that, and that's one of the great things about being here with a team, is, that kind of gets broken up a little bit, but just being able to show up every day, and just not miss practices.
Yes, and you have a team at the University of Illinois. I mean, we've talked about this before, that the University of Illinois oftentimes ranks really high in the nation, in the nation's cup, effectively, for track and field, right? That you have a lot of medals that come from the University of Illinois that would be, I think, in the top 5 of all the nations coming from track and field. So what is it like to be able to be part of that team, and to learn from your competitors as well as your coach?
I certainly would not be where I am today if it weren't for them. Um, I remember coming here, as a young, mid-teens racer, for some of the first times, not knowing the first thing about drafting. Something that is has changed quite a lot, and is a very vital thing, especially in those longer distances.
Now describe what drafting is, if people
Oh,
don't
yep.
know what it is, please.
Yeah, so drafting is basically, like they do in NASCAR and things like that, is basically just getting in a line, a straight line, or close to it, and just having the first person basically, just take as much of that wind and anything like that. And so the racers behind are getting a little bit of an assist, so to say. They're not having to push through all of that wind.
And it's a
And
big
so,
difference, right?
oh, yep. So, I would think, I came here and I would think, 2 chairs behind someone, I'm in their draft. That's not a problem. And I know Adam's like, no, you have to be like, okay, 6 inches from their bumper, then you're in the draft. And I'm like, that's close. But yeah, just learning how to draft, how pack dynamics work, and how to pull a steady speed. I came here with 2 gears, basically: all out sprint or just kind of a jog. And when you're going out for those, some of the workouts at 75%, RPE, rate of perceived exertion, that isn't either of those 2 gears. And so just learning how to, pace myself, and a lot.
A lot, and the support, and you mentioned
Absolutely.
before that practice is scheduled every day, so you just show up at practice. It takes a little of the thinking out of it, it sounds like, as well.
Yeah. And one of the great things about being here on a team is we all push each other, and we're all willing to help each other out. If anyone, we have such a broad spectrum of specialties here. It's if I ever need any help with, say, something about my nutrition or something like that, there's always someone who's going to know a lot about that subject, and so you can go to each other and just say, hey, what do you know about this?
Exactly. Now, nutrition might well be of prime importance as you approach Tokyo. At the
Yep.
trials, you ran the 100, the 400, the 800, the 1500, and the 5000. And is there a chance that you do that in Tokyo? And the thing is, I mean, looking at it, right, in Rio, you did the same thing, but in Tokyo, you probably will have to run double what you ran in Tokyo, or double what you ran in Rio.
So yeah, I think I'll certainly hopefully have the opportunity to race everything. And I probably will do pretty much everything. Maybe one event or something like that I might not do. But yeah, I think I'll have a pretty busy schedule for the fall.
Well, a busy schedule because you'll do 100 through 5000, which is unheard of in the running world, but wheelchair racing in some ways is sort of more similar to swimming in that you
Yep.
can be successful over a variety of different events. Like in
Yep.
running, you'll never see a 100-meter racer jumping into a 1500 like that. That just never would happen. But you can do that. But not only are you doing 100, 400, 800, 1500, 5000 potentially, and then the marathon, but then you also get into marathon season where
Yep.
you have Chicago, New York, and Boston. Are they doing Boston as a fall marathon this year as well?
Yep. Pretty much everything has been pushed to the fall.
So everything that means London as well.
So yep. So I think it will be Berlin, London, uh, Chicago, Boston, uh, Tokyo, New York, something like that.
So this is
Quite a busy
running them.
schedule, but some of the one of the things is it really goes back to kind of how Adam trains us, and he trains us for speed, and that's kind of how we can do all the kind of the spread of events that we do is he trains us for speed, and so whether you are in a 100 or whether you're in a 5000, you can't really win that without a sprint, and so having a sprint is a vital thing even in those distance races. And so having a good start can sometimes mean the difference between getting in that front pack and having to try and chase it down for miles. And at the end of the end of a marathon, a lot of people can do a marathon at in the mid-teens of miles an hour, but if you can't sprint up to into those 20s at the end, it's a vital thing.
So he's training you for speed, but you also have trained a lot of endurance. I mean, you have to have
Yep.
a lot of endurance as well.
Yeah. I remember again back to some of my first days here. Remember going out for my first Saturday push, and I think it was something around 20 miles. I had never done anything remotely close to that in a training run before. So I was like, what are we doing?
Wow. Yes. A lot of cornfields out there in
Yep.
Illinois for 20
Yep.
miles. Interesting. So you did last year, you did a virtual, so it was a virtual New York where you went 112. Is that what you did?
So yep, virtual New York, I think does a 113 high. Uh,
Wow. 113. So this is averaging 20, 21 and change.
20 thereabouts. Yep. So yep, that was one of the great things about well, one of the good things that came out of all of the cancellations and postponements was that with the virtual races you can kind of be your own race director, and so I was able to choose my own course to an extent, kind of when I went out and did it, and things like that. So I remember my mom and I scouted within like a 30-mile radius of town, looking for low traffic, relatively straight roads, that weren't rough or anything like that, had relatively few crossings, railroad or other road crossings. And so just to try and simulate an actual marathon as much as we could. And yeah, on that particular day, just a good tailwind, and well fueled. The equipment was well dialed in. And yep.
So the runners, we've seen this where they've been trying to basically create a scenario where they can break the 2-hour mark for the marathon. Is there an equivalent on the wheelchair side of the running 2-hour marathon? And do you have your eyes on it?
I am not sure that something like that is out there at the moment. I just no clue.
No clue. All right, which is good. And I mean, just to give you one suggestion as well as a race that I think I have done the St. George Marathon in Utah, in southern Utah. It's a
I have heard of that.
point-to-point marathon. I think that you might have a chance to go, a good chance to go sub 1 hour. You did say you're not a huge fan of the downhills.
Not, yeah, average of 26.
Average of 26. There are 3 hills, and most of the rest of it is downhill. There was one section where I hit 50 miles an hour on a downhill.
I think I'd probably tap out maybe at 40.
You might tap out at 40, but I also think that you would go significantly faster up the uphills, which is where you would make significant time, because there are 3 uphills, and I think one is 2 miles and the other 2 are like a mile, and they're pretty good. But yeah, if you ever wanted to do it, it would be a really interesting thought to try to get sub 1 hour.
I'll keep it in the back of my mind.
Keep in the back of your mind. Maybe I'll plant the seed with Adam as well, and see what he thinks about it. But
all right.
But a lot of what you do with the sport too is giving back as a mentor. I mean, you're only 23 years old, but giving back to kids. And one of the things that I read was teach kids before someone tells them that they can't. Teach kids that they can before someone tells them that they can't. Is that something that you feel like you had to break through what other people thought you couldn't do? And is that why you put such a premium on teaching kids that, hey, don't listen to people when they tell you can't?
Yes, so I personally haven't really had to do break through any mindsets like that, but I certainly do know that certain people do, and so that's actually the motto of the youth sports program that I came from, the Bennett Blazers.
Right, exactly.
Is to teach kids they can before someone tells them they can't.
Mm-hmm.
And so, but I think I started with them when I was 2 years old. And so, yep. And so growing up with that mentality, I think has certainly opened up a lot of doors, and just kind of taught me to approach things a certain way, which is just how am I going to get this done? This is what I have to work with, and this is my goal. And so just how am I going to get to my goal? And so, yeah, I think it is, certainly a very vital thing. and it's kind of a sad story, but I remember after my Boston Marathon win, I went to speak at a school, and we kind of ran a little bit longer in our time, and the class waiting to get into the classroom that we were in, kind of was just asking, hey, what, kind of what's up with the time? We're running a little late, and one of the teachers said, sorry, we're running late. We had someone important come in to speak with us, and I heard one of the kids say, if they're important, why are they here? And so just showing people that they can do things. They aren't doomed to be stuck in certain situations. It's been a thing that I'm pretty passionate about.
Yeah, exactly. And you certainly, you show it. I mean, this is one thing you can talk about it. It's two that you can demonstrate it. You are approaching a crazy schedule, potentially running every race in Tokyo, and then going and doing a marathon, what sounds like every 2 weeks during the fall, with some travel. I mean, there's London in there, there's Tokyo in there. So sometimes those are the biggest challenges. Do you have a story that you tell yourself, like when things get difficult, when the schedule gets difficult? Because you're also trying to juggle school in addition to this professional athlete thing. And when things get difficult, how are you able to push through that difficulty?
And so, at least as far as school is concerned, I've been fortunate enough to have a lot of the professors that have been running my classes are great with kind of understanding that hey, I travel a lot, I may have to kind of move some things a little bit. And so yeah, if an exam would fall on a date where I'm out of town, I would just hey, can I take that early or something like that. And so they've been great with that. Another thing that's good is being able to take classes online and just bring it with me. But yeah,
when you feel overwhelmed, because I'd imagine at times you have to feel overwhelmed, right? With juggling school and travel and racing and all of that. How do you keep yourself going then?
Yeah, I mean, at times, absolutely, things do get quite crazy. But just trying to just take things a day at a time. Don't don't look at the whole schedule. Just look at what's next. Concentrate on that, and then move on. And one thing else that I do is I'm a Christian, and so that is a huge thing to be able to just to be able to lean on God and just say hey, whatever happens, it's in your hands.
Yeah, no, that's for sure. And it's interesting. I think that we can kind of wrap it up with because I feel like I introduced you with the idea of simplicity, that watching you on the track, it looks simple. And I mean that as the highest compliment that I can, because it takes so much work to achieve simplicity. And what's really cool is that it's not just in your performance, it's really in how you're approaching your sport, but also how you're approaching your life, to be able to achieve this sense of simplicity and taking it moment by moment, day by day. And then also to be able to sort of let go and recognize that there are a lot of things that are not in your hands. So thank you, Daniel, for joining us, but also for doing what you do.
Thank you.
Yeah, no, this is wonderful. I look forward to watching you in Tokyo. Thank you to all of you who tuned in. for for Daniel here. I hope you get a chance to watch him. We will have NBC and Peacock will have over 1,200 hours of coverage of the Paralympics. So please tune in and watch Daniel. The greatest compliment that you can pay us as an organization, Chris Waddell Living It, is to tell your friends. If you like what you've seen here, please tell your friends. Please like us. Please follow us. We're on YouTube, so you can watch it. We're on Apple and Spotify and all the other usual cast of characters as far as the podcasts are concerned. So thank you so much again, Daniel. Thank you to you.
Thank you.
Continue to train hard, and we will look forward to seeing you soon. Thank you for joining us. Please subscribe to Chris Waddell Living It for more stories on the adaptive community, the Paralympics, artists, athletes, entrepreneurs, experts in the experience of being human. Also follow us on Spotify, Apple, Facebook, and Instagram. I look forward to seeing you next week.